Tamako Market is the story of the daughter of a mochi maker and her sexual awakening to mochi in all of its seductive ways. She idolizes mochi, breathes mochi, and eventually becomes mochi. Sounds pretty simple, right? Wrong. Assuming you've seen the show, you probably know that Tamako Market isn't even remotely similar to what I just said. Well, actually, I don't know. Look, man, this girl doesn't go a single second without thinking of mochi, and all I'm saying is that I've never seen anyone this excited over food. I mean, hey, I like sweets as much as the next guy, but unlike Tamako, you won't catch me with my pants down at 5 a.m. beside the freezer, adding another layer to what was once a regular ice cream sandwich. If you didn't need that imagery, well, hey, neither did I, so let's forget that and move on to something more interesting, like the series as a whole. Plot of Tamako Market is somewhat loose in my opinion. While the story starts out with the halted journey of an unnecessarily attractive bird, no I do not want to fuck it, named Dara, the story eventually shifts into a normal slice of life where a talking bird struggles with diabetes and mochi addiction. Pretty normal, am I right, boys? It's only towards the end of the series that the original mission Dara was going on makes a genuine reappearance, this mission being to find a bride for his homeland's prince. It's mentioned a lot of times in passing, but never actually used to progress the story. It's essentially just an ongoing gag throughout the show. First, let me start out by saying that I don't actually mind this kind of development and had a lot of fun watching Tamako Market again. I've seen the series twice now, and both times I felt absolutely captivated by just how welcoming the anime feels to the viewer. Be it through Tamako's cheerful and spacey interactions with others, or just the overall closeness the shopping district of Tamiya has between all of its business owners, I've always felt like I was somehow a part of this group. This, at least in my opinion, is where the anime shines, arguably shifting the plot from Dara's journey to the regular life of a high school girl. It's kinda hard to pinpoint what exactly gives Tamako Market that feeling, but I think a large part of it has to deal with how the anime captures a beautiful sense of community with those who are in the shopping district, as well as the youthful innocence the show uses to give some subtle yet important takeaways. The show does a really good job at balancing these different factors, but not nearly as good as they do with their characters. While the series rather leisurely follows Tamako, we as the audience come into contact with other business owners throughout the district as Tamako interacts with them. Everyone is so kind and caring, not to mention how lively they all are. They feel like people, something not often associated with supporting characters in my opinion. From the croquet-wielding granny to the master of the small music bar, we're welcomed home with open arms, giving us that heartwarming, homey feeling that makes the anime so special. I mean, seriously dude, I take one look at these characters and the only thing I can think is, wow Mitsumura-san, I wish you were my neighbor instead of that one creepy guy who waits at my bus stop every morning to give me questionably flavored chocolate. Characters and jokes aside though, the show is filled with so many different messages that really anyone could learn from in life. Sure, you can make the argument that the show is just meant to be a quick dopamine hit and quit, but I think if you really look deep into some of the characters and their interactions with others, you might come out thinking something different. Tamako Market has a very cheerful atmosphere, one that in a way sort of masks the seriousness of some of the messages it projects. I remember first watching this show and not even thinking about what the characters might have been going through internally. This time around, I think I was able to understand them a lot more though. Or maybe I'm just reading too much into it since I decided to review it, who knows. You can always decide that for yourself if you decide to watch it though. That being said, I'll just go ahead and throw out one of the more relatable messages I picked up on while watching the series. Look at this girl. Now boys, I don't usually go with the kudere in anime. To be honest, I kinda just find most of them to be annoying, cause most of the time they are just a husk of a human being without any personality. Now, tsunderes on the other hand, they can get it any time they want, and I'll admit that much. Maybe I'm a masochist, who could say? I'd much rather like a girl who could beat my ass than a girl whose only personality trait is that she looks quietly submissive and breedable. I know, fighting words, but I can't really take it back, so please don't roast me in the comment section, please, I'm begging you, please. Regardless, what makes Shiori interesting as a kudere is the fact that she actually has a reason to be one, and it isn't some pee-pee piss myself baby trauma shit, but something that hits harder. Anxiety. Saying my middle school to high school self could relate to this girl would be the biggest understatement of the year. I think we can all trace back some form of anxiety in our lives as well as how horrible it feels in the moment. When Shiori is first introduced, she comes off as a very quiet girl, not really wanting to stand out and generally just avoiding others. Instead of actively involving herself outside of her club, she sits back, observing others, more specifically Tamako's friend group. She sees the fun they have together and the laughs they share, wanting that for herself without the resolve to actually approach Tamako about it. One day, after Dara comes barreling out of the sky in front of Shiori, he convinces her to stop by Tamako's house where they have some mochi and eventually have dinner together. Despite the hospitality though, Shiori has trouble thanking Tamako out of what I assume to be a fear of people. Despite Tamako's continuous kindness, Shiori often just pulls away, sinking into a somewhat disappointed haze. Looking at it from a third-person perspective, she seems less reserved and just more anxious to speak what's on her mind so she doesn't come off as weird. From this point onward, the rest of the episode is dedicated to Shiori's internal conflict as she struggles to find a way to thank Tamako for her kindness. I know I can't speak for everyone in this case, as anxiety does differ between people. I do, however, think that Shiori as a character can be relatable to some people who might suffer a similar problem, though. As you watch her try and try only to fail, you gain this almost attachment to her. You want to see her succeed, to do something that seems so simple but feels so challenging to her or maybe even yourself. And so you root for her until she eventually finds it within herself to thank Tamako for the kindness she has always shown her. I thought this was a pretty sweet sentiment in the show, and this is only one of many more. Tamako's little sister Anko is also an amazing character to look at, one that, despite being so young, actually teaches a pretty adult-like message. In episode 4, Anko is conflicted due to an upcoming festival overlapping with her plans she's made with friends. She's basically told that she has to attend this festival as her help would be needed in the mochi shop. Obviously though, if you know anything about children, Anko wasn't too happy about this overlapping with her plans. She essentially sulks around from this point on until Tamako and the others eventually find a way to help her out, allowing her to take part in the festival while maintaining her plans with her friends. On her way out of the shopping district, however, she's met with the flower person. She's a flower person. In this moment, Anko is asked to help some of the other children with getting dressed for the festival, resurfacing a memory of when she was little where Anko's mother helped her through the process. With some spare time, Anko agrees, helping one little girl who seems to have trouble with the makeup portion, and teaching her a trick to ease the worry, as Anko's mother did for her. The interesting thing about this interaction is that, as she helps this child, she looks at her only to somewhat see herself. It reminds her of her love for the festival, something that was clouded due to it being the original reason she couldn't hang out with friends. As Anko goes to leave, the little girl stops her, worried that she might be leaving. And so, Anko stays, giving the smaller child a boost of confidence to wear as she parades around at the festival. This situation almost means to show the viewer that, regardless of whatever grandiose plan you might have, it's okay to enjoy the little things while they last in the moment. Even more so, it's a testament to what it means to see yourself in another person, reigniting a passion that might have once felt distant or even lost to time. I personally thought Anko was one of the more fun characters to break down in the show. Also, she's just such a fucking bean. I mean, look at her, dude. You can't tell me that's not head pat material. Come on, I won't believe you. Anko aside, though, let's move on to what can only be described as a classic artist, a man who shaped my early teenage music tastes for the better. You may know him from some of his hit songs, such as Cult 45, and have I mentioned Cult 45? I'm sorry, I don't know any more of his songs. Please don't burn me at the stake. This dude is none other than Afro Man. Right, this guy does tofu stuff. Episode 7 revolves very heavily on the internal problems this character faces as a person who has fallen in love with the bathhouse owner's daughter, Sayuri. A lot of Tamako Market's messages can often tie into love, but I found this one in particular to be more interesting to talk about. In its own way, it kind of represents a heartwarming idea of what love is, and uses Tofu Boy here to represent that in a way that makes the viewer root for him. Now guys, you probably don't know this about me, but I'm something of a love expert. With many informative and scholarly sources to back my knowledge, I think I got a pretty good idea of what love is. Love in Tofu Boy's case is simply caring for the girl he loves. He hardly interacts with her, and the times that he does, he's just a fumbling mess. We see as Choi tells his compatibility fortune with her that he is disappointed as the results weren't very favorable. When she got her fortune told, however, for her and her upcoming fiancé, the results were looking good. I'm sure in some way many people can relate to what it's like to somehow lose out on someone. In my mind, you can pretty much react to this in one of two ways. You can either A, accept the fact that it can't be and do your best to share in that person's happiness, or you can potentially fuck things up by being selfish. That being said, let's just say that Tofu Boy took that L like a fucking G, man. After he got over the initial shock of it all, he later returned to give her his best wishes for their happiness. And if that isn't a Sigma male, I don't know what is. To say this dude got cucked by Choi's fortune-telling ability would be an understatement. The dude practically got told it's never going to happen without actually being told it was never going to happen. With Choi's predictions pretty much being 100% right most of the time though, it was practically unavoidable. And so, he accepts things for what they are, caring enough for her not to tarnish the happiness she feels with the one she loves by means of his own feelings. I personally thought this was an interesting message on what it means to love someone, as well as what it means to accept what can't be. If you've taken anything away from this video, I mainly want you to know that Tamako Market will teach you some lessons, ones you might find yourself experiencing in life. Each episode is sort of like its own standalone message, and I can appreciate that sort of thing in anime. While I only chose 3 that I personally wanted to talk about, there's so many more episodes with more meanings, ones you might like if you decide to check it out. If you have seen it, or maybe this review convinced you to give it a go, feel free to let me know in the comments below, and maybe even subscribe while you're there. That said, thanks for watching, and I'll hopefully see you in the next vid. Ite dashai!